All right, it's Tuesday morning and it's back to work. That's right. It's July the 5th. I'm sitting here in my car in Malibu in my driveway at my apartment and going through some of these news stories. It says here, how was Walmart your popular? I am so popular. My reviews out there. I'm not going to review the local Walmart, but yes, I did go to Walmart grocery shopping this weekend. Then there is a daily coronavirus roundup. 5 places you'll most likely catch COVID, and etc. Again, COVID continues in our nation despite some people wishing it gone, as much as I do. I wish it gone, but it continues, and so the reality is I do get a daily COVID briefing to my phone. And of course, the tragic, horrific shooting in the Chicagoland area yesterday in Highland Park, where, so far as I understand it, 6 are dead in another tragic gun violence incident in our country, and dozens remain wounded. Couldn't even have a 4th of July parade, and the parade interrupted by gunfire. That story, I understand that as well. And we continue to talk about that. I won't be shying away from this story, just like I didn't shy away from Uvalde, didn't shy away from Buffalo, and before that, yes, absolutely before that on this show. We see here 2 cops shot during a July the 4th fireworks show in Philadelphia. So it's out there in Chicago, it's down in Philadelphia, and it continues to be everywhere as we continue, talking about it here on Apartment Karaoke. Story about the Cassidy Hutchinson testimony. She's the one that pointed out that Trump knew that there were people with firearms and said, let them in to my rally at the Ellipse. He wanted the magnetometers turned off. He said, shut those MFR mags off, because he wanted those people to go there, and then he wanted them to go, of course, to the Capitol building. This has all been well established. And, of course, the other more salacious part of her tale, did he or did he not grab the steering wheel? That was a story that she told. She was very clear when she gave her testimony that it was hearsay, that she had heard a story. And, of course, they came out and attacked her immediately upon that. Yes, they called her liar, liar, pants on fire. Absolutely, they did. Essentially, that's what they called her. And, but yeah, she was just giving a story, and her testimony will stand up, not just on that incident, was there not, or was an altercation between the former president and the Secret Service or not. Still, the other information revealed in her testimony is very useful to the work of the Select Committee moving forward. And yes, I've had a lot of stories about, of course, Trump, as well as the failed insurrection January 6th of last year. Mitt Romney, he says, Trump's return would likely make malady of denial, So if I wanted to know what the senator from Utah said, I'd have to open up the story, and I will, even though I don't have that much time. He says a malady of denial, deceit, and distrust in the United States, and that would be incurable. So says the Republican senator from Utah, Mitt Romney. So I'll send that to myself in an email. That sounds like a great one for after work. Yes, that's right. I don't really have time to read any stories during work, but yes, the current senator from Utah says, Trump's return, a bad thing for America. How about we just leave it like that? I mean, that would be like shortening it up. Not as many words as the senator from Utah, but still, that's what I'm going to say. Bad. Trump's return in mobile mode. Gustavo Trabian.
It's amazing how you can speak right to my heart. Without saying a word, you can light up the dark.
right, that was Gustavo Travian with the acoustic cover of the hit When You Say Nothing at All. That's right. From the 1999 film Notting Hill, starring Hugh Grant and, of course, Julia Roberts. Yeah, it just came to me. I'm sorry, Miss Roberts. And this one, well, Billy Joel from the album Glass House. It's an album where he toughened up, according to the story that I read last week from Ultimate Classic Rock. That's right, he toughened up and he did this great one and he put it all out there. All for Lena.
She stood on the tracks, waving her arms, leading me to that third rail shock. Quick as a wink, she changed her mind. She gave me a night, that's all it was. What does it take until I stop kidding myself, wasting my time? Whoa, there's nothing else I can do, 'cause I'm doing it all for Lena. I don't want anyone new, 'cause I'm living it all for Lena. There's nothing in it for you, 'cause I'm giving it all for Lena. We laid on the beach, watching the tide. She didn't tell me there were rocks under the waves, right off the shore. Washed up on the side, barely alive, wishing the undertow would stop. How can a man take any more? Whoa, there's nothing else I can do, 'cause I'm doing it all for Lena. I don't want anyone new, 'cause I'm living it all for Lena. There's nothing in it for you, 'cause I'm giving it all to Lena. I'm feeling this fool, losing my friends, making my family lose their minds. I don't wanna eat, I don't wanna sleep, I only want Lena one more time. Now I'm in my room, watching the tube, telling myself she still makes love. Over to say she's changed her mind. So wait in the dark, listening for her, instead of my old man saying, stop kidding yourself, wasting your time. Whoa, there's nothing else I can do, 'cause I'm doing it all for Lena. Don't want anyone new, 'cause I'm living it all for Lena. There's nothing in it for you, 'cause I'm doing it all for Lena.
There's nothing in it for you. That's right, there's nothing in it for you, nor for me, my fine listener, indeed. This show is not monetized, and unfortunately, the people of Russia unable to hear that particular song, or it might be the vassal state of Belarus, that's right, a subservient state of the dictator Vladimir Putin. I think maybe both territories, they don't have rights to it. I can prove that with an email from, again, YouTube and their ID content, when they clearly say it's okay. All in the United States, all across Europe, all across NATO, but banned in Russia and Belarus. That's at least the information that I have. And this is Timothy B. Schmidt with his smash hit Simple Man. No, I'm kidding. He is here, but again, I'm not going to do it right now. That's right, I'm here at the Gulf gas station. Yeah, that's fine. After doing the great tune, When You Say Nothing at All, and then, of course, the little talk over, segued into the All for Lena, and, of course, I'm here. It's not that far away from my apartment. I'll be right back in just a moment. You're listening to The Morning Show.
In your glass building, call 563.
Well, I was going to do just a song, Before You Go, by Crosby, Stills, and Nash, before, when I had like about 10 minutes, but I decided I didn't even have enough time for that. Again, it's the Tuesday coming out of the holiday, and I had to get back to my job. So no Crosby, Stills, and Nash, unfortunately. Now it's my lunch hour. It's about 10 to 12. News at the top of the hour provided by the AP. A little bit of a head start on that. Governor Hogan down there in Maryland suspends good and substantial reason standard for gun permits, saying now you do not have to have a good and substantial reason. You can just get a gun. That's in accordance with the Supreme Court's ruling recently dealing with the conceal and carry law in the state of New York, a fine law, a good law that had remained in place for 111 years before being killed by the Supreme Court of the United States, where they say that anyone now can conceal and carry, either upstate New York or New York City or Long Island or wherever. I came out in opposition. Yes, I object to the Supreme Court ruling. I was very clear on that on my essay written on Facebook, and I might have read it here on my show as to why I felt like the 111-year-old ban on conceal and carry served us well, and how the Supreme Court, again, misguided in their ruling. Anyway, Governor Hogan says he had no choice because of the Supreme Court ruling, and to tell the Maryland State Police to suspend the state's good and substantial reason standard for carrying a handgun or whatever, in the state of Maryland. They just made the job that much more hard for law enforcement in the state of Maryland, just like they made it that much more hard for law enforcement in the great Empire State, as so stated by Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, and his comments on the Supreme Court decision. Their job is going to be a lot harder now that the Supreme Court stuck its nose in, legislating from the bench and declaring unconstitutional law that for 111 years had no constitutional problem whatsoever. No one complained about it for 111 years. Again, it's been very clear in their decision previously on Heller, and written by Justice Scalia, a right-winger on the court, no longer there, obviously, having passed some time ago. But he was clear in Heller when he said that that right is not absolute in terms of gun ownership. What do they got here? This is the heartbeat of the Tri-County radio station. Let's crank it up, see what they're doing.
I'm the man, I went and bought my family, I hope they understand. I went to pay my nails, right, I know they gon' get mad. They said look in the mirror, I'm more Michael Jackson bad. You think I'm a disappointment, I know you do. You don't gotta go and tell me twice, cause I know it's true. And here you go, guilt tripping me like my daddy do. That's why I cut him off, I couldn't deal with his issues. You said I got no problems, but you just don't know. You said to get your life together, boy, you're 24. So I let my head down. I'm the man, I went and bought my family, I hope they understand.
Okay, now I'm going to fade that and do one of my famous digressions into another tune, a tune that I said, if I do a Third Love album, for free, I got to have this great Black Eyed Peas tune in it. So that's I'm sorry, I ruined it. I ruined it.
I think about it every night and day. I'm addicted, wanna jump inside your love. I wouldn't wanna have it any other way. I'm addicted and I just can't get enough.
I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. Honey got a sexy on steaming. She give my hotness a new meaning. Perfection, mommy, you gleaming. Inception, you got above a dreaming. Damn baby, I'm beaming. I'm trying to holler at you, I'm screaming. Let me love you down this evening.
Love you, yeah, you know you are my demon.
Girl, like a form of tuning. Like a be the king, you could be the queen. And my mind's dirty and it don't need cleaning.
I love you long time, so you know the meaning.
Oh baby, I can't come down, so please come help me out. You got me feeling high and I can't step off the cloud. And I just can't get enough.
Boy, I think about it every night and day. I'm addicted, wanna jump inside your love. I wouldn't wanna have
just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. Honey got me running like I'm Flojo. Signs a name on my heart with an XO. Love so sweet, got me vexed though. I wanna wish it right back like presto, yes. Meantime, I wait for the next time she come around for a toast to the best time. We LOL back and forth on the text line. She got me fishing for a love, I confess. Something about a smile and a combo got me high and I ain't coming down, yo. My heart pumping out louder than electro. She got me feeling like Mr. Romantic. Oh baby, I can't come down, so please come round me out. You got me feeling high and I can't step on the cloud. And I just can't get enough.
Boy, I think about it every night and day. I'm addicted, wanna jump inside your love. I wouldn't wanna have it any other way. I'm addicted and I just can't get enough.
Switch up. Switch up. Switch up. I just can't switch up. Stuck in your bed, rock hot, up in your love shot. Now out by your own shot. I'm stuck in your head. Switch up. Can't get out. I want it, making me feel. Give it to me. I want it all. Know what I mean? Your love is a dose of excess. Switch up. Addicted, I can't get away from you. Afflicted, I need it, I miss it. Switch up. I want your loving right next to me, and I can't erase you out of my memory. I just can't switch up
to FM.
Let it go.
Today's favorites and yesterday's classics. We're the Tri-County Heartbeat, WCDO.
Now from that, I'd probably run away and do Iran for the presidency of the United States. No, I did. I ran. I didn't win, though. I did. I ran, obviously, November 2020. I lost. I gave a graceful concession speech at the time, unlike Trump, who never conceded. But in terms of Iran, a flock of seagulls, to be sure. From the best of A Flock of Seagulls, and that certainly qualifies. I ran so far away, and I did. I ran for the President of the United States, was not successful. Now, the only one that I know that's announced so far for 2024, why, that would be Howard Stern. I talked about it last week on my program entitled Howard's Run. I certainly talked about it at some length. Howard Jones, I'm sorry, not Howard Jones. I was going to call Howard Jones with No One Is to Blame, or one of his great hits. But Howard Stern, give me a call, 573-680-0356. The guy can't even remember his own phone number. Well, I might be able to help Howard, with maybe some selection of some campaign theme songs, and kind of avoiding the dangerous waters out there, picking the wrong one. Now, this was one of my ancillary campaign theme songs. I had several of those, and of course, my main campaign theme song was The Middle by Maren Morissette Gray. Now, I hope that Howard Stern does not pick my campaign theme songs, even though I've not announced. Again, I'm still reeling from the last defeat, and again, I have not, but Howard has, and this is Howard Jones.
You can look at the menu, but you just can't eat. You can feel the dishes, but you can't have a seat. You can dip your foot in the pool, but you can't have a swim. You can feel the punishment, but you can't commit the sin. And you want to, and you want to. We want everyone, and you want to, and you want
gentlemen, Phil Collins. I guess we lost it, Yeah, that's all right. I'm playing out of YouTube and posted out there by Howard Jones Music, the great tune. And as I mentioned, yes, it was one of my ancillary campaign theme songs for 2020. And yes, I did the call out for Phil because he's playing drums on the thing. Also, well, he's doing backing vocals. He also helped produce the song as well. And Phil's song, Both Sides of the Story, was also an ancillary campaign theme song because I felt it was important to reach out and listen to both sides, Republican, Democrat, my party, the Orange Party, and Aren't You Glad to Know?
Truth, we must have
Phil Collins is a great tune from the album Both Sides. Thank you, Phil. Now I'm switching over where I believe they'll be doing Lunchtime with the Oldies at the Heartbeat of the Tri-County, WCDO.
Lunchtime with the Oldies. You want to get funky with me? All right, then. Isley Brothers.
Let's get
Your
funky.
thing. WCDO.
It's your thing. Do what you wanna do. I can't tell you who to talk to. It's your thing. Do what you wanna do. I can't tell you who to talk to. If you want me to love you, maybe I'll wait. Believe me, woman, it ain't no big deal. Oh, you need love now, just as bad as I do. Makes me no difference now. We give things. Oh, it's your thing. Do what you wanna do. I can't tell you who to talk to. It's your thing. Do what you wanna do now. I can't tell you who to talk to. Do what you wanna do. I can't tell you who to talk to. Hit the man, it's your thing. Yeah, do what you wanna do. I can't tell you who to talk to. I'm not trying to run your life. I know you wanna do what's right. I'll give your love, girl, to whoever you choose. How can you lose with the stuff you use? It's your thing. Do what you wanna do. I can't tell you who to talk to. It's your thing. Yeah, do what you wanna do.
The memories keep coming. You've got Lunchtime with the Oldies, WCDO.
And I don't hardly know her, but I think I could love her. Crimson and clover. Would you come walking over?
right, they're dusting off the vinyl over there with Lunchtime with the Oldies at the Heartbeat of the Tri-County, and I've run out of time. Well, I got a few minutes, so I'm going to go and do that Crosby, Stills, Nash thing I mentioned before, the Just a Song Before I Go. Haha, only kidding. It's Helplessly Hoping. I'm helplessly hoping to do this one. Posted out there by Stephen McElvain on YouTube.
Helplessly hoping, her heart licking, others nearby, awaiting a word, gasping at glimpses of gentle true spirit. He runs, wishing he could fly high, only to trip at the sound of goodbye. Wordlessly watching, he waits by the window and wonders at the empty place inside. Heartlessly helping himself to her bad dreams, he worries, did he hear a goodbye? Or even hello? They are one person, they are two alone, they are three together, they are for each other. Stand by the stairway, you'll see something certain to tell you. Confusion has its cause. Love isn't lying, it's loose in a lady who lingers, saying she is lost and choking on hello. They are one person, they are two alone, they are three together, they are for each other.
All right, that'll have to be goodbye for now from Crosby, Stills, and Nash with Helplessly Hoping. I'll be back after lunch. Thank you for listening. Okay, it's after work, and now continuing with the program. The stories this evening, well, I got a few interesting stories. One of them about a candidate out there in Illinois who put his foot in his mouth. I'll have that story. I'll also have a story once again about this whole thing about Trump and what Mitt Romney said about him. It would make his return would make malady of denial, deceit, and distrust in the United States incurable. I'll have that story from Senator Mitt Romney. And the people over at Fox and Friends, they confront the billion-dollar United States lawsuits over election fraud claims and their impact on Fox News. Yeah, Fox News is, they really put themselves out there with the things that they've said and that happen to have been untrue, at least so alleged by Dominion voting systems as well as Smartmatic voting systems. Yeah, they're in a lot of heat over there at Fox News, so I'll have all these stories. I'm going to start first with the fella out there in Illinois and, again, stuck his foot in his mouth. Yeah, and Keith Olbermann also came in and blasted the guy. Apparently he's been blasted. He may have been one of Keith's worst persons of the day for that particular day when he did it. Who? Darren Bailey, an Illinois state senator and the Republican nominee for governor. He had to apologize yesterday after saying that people should move on from the deadly Highland Park shooting earlier in the day. I mentioned it earlier here on the program. 4th of July parade interrupted by one of these mass gunslings that we've seen way too much of in our nation. 6 people killed, and it said dozens more injured in the hospital. So this guy says we should move on. And when does he say it? Is it like the day that it happened? It's a crazy guy. Anyway, Mr. Bailey spoke after a 4th of July parade in the town of Skokie, Illinois, and was canceled. So he spoke after the parade in Skokie was canceled as a response to the parade in Highland Park, which, as I mentioned, left at least 6 dead and injured at least 24 others. So Mr. Bailey said, let's pray for justice to prevail, and then let's move on and let's celebrate the independence of this nation. It's a very strange thing to say on the day that such a tragedy occurred. Mr. Bailey then later said he apologized, and he apologized if what he had said diminished the pain of those that were affected in this slaying. He says, I'm heartbroken by today's tragic events and the pain and loss felt by so many. My intent was to pray for the victims and those affected by today's tragedy and for the shooter to be caught and prosecuted without further loss. A man who police claim is the suspect in the case has been apprehended. Mr. Bailey said he hopes people can come together in prayer and to take action to address rampant crime and mental health issues to ensure tragedies like this shooting do not happen again. Now, of course, I've talked about the package that was put together by Senator Murphy of Connecticut and his Republican colleague, Senator Cornyn in Texas. That was a good package, not everything that some of us would have liked to have seen in gun violence legislation, but a very good package done. I give them really my tip of my hat that they finally get it done, after terrible tragic shootings in Buffalo as well as Uvalde, Texas, and all the other, slayings in our country. Of course, I've recently gone after the Supreme Court of the United States for striking down a gun law that existed for 111 years here in the state of New York. Now, once again, Mr. Bailey said, he went on to say, July the 4th is supposed to be a holiday for families, for parades, for celebrating the American dream. But when people don't feel safe in their own community, they are deprived of that dream. How can you live and dream when you don't feel safe, when you're in grave danger by massive gunslings all across our nation? And so, he came under attack, obviously, by many. And I'm going to pop into the story regarding what Keith Olbermann had to say about it from Newsweek and just briefly touch on that. That story written by Andrew Stanton. It says Keith Olbermann slammed Mr. Bailey as a psycho after the Trump-backed Illinois candidate said, let's move on, just hours after a gunman opened fire at a Highland Park 4th of July parade yesterday. It says 6 people were killed, dozens more suffering. In a Facebook Live video about 2 hours after the shooting, Bailey urged people to move on from the incidents, from this incident. And he said, they've done an amazing job. There's a lot of confusion and frustration that the parade's being canceled, but they did the right thing because people's safety has got to come first. The shooter is still large, so let's pray for justice to prevail. And then he went on to say, and let's move on, and let's celebrate the independence of this nation, etc., etc. And these comments were met with ridicule out there online. And it says here, Mr. Olbermann, who regularly posts a Twitter thread mocking the, quote, worst person in the world, end quote, pointed him out on Tuesday. Just today, Mr. Olbermann gave him a bronze third place award, describing him as Trump's soulless candidate for the governor of Illinois. Going on to say, this psycho powered through the disruption of his campaigning by Highland Park to remind us to, quote, move on and get back to Trump paranoia. Anyway, once again, that's the input there of Keith Olbermann. Now, there's another person out there who could certainly be possibly a nominee for one of his worst peoples of the day. I'm not going to give her name, but it's the politician out there in the state of Missouri who recently found herself convicted of crimes and basically dealing with the misappropriation of COVID funds that was sent to her to deal with testing situations. And I don't know, many, many thousands of dollars. I think somewhere around $100,000. The DA in the state of Missouri pointing out the fact that this individual thought she was going to get away with a crime. Again, taking money meant for, dealing with the pandemic in our nation and lining her pockets with it instead. Clearly one of those candidates. So now she resigned her office, and she said it's been her pleasure to serve her constituents, and made not a mention of her legal troubles within her resignation. That, again, is beyond the pale. I'll be right back with the next story in a moment. You're listening to The Morning Show. From thehill.com, got a story. Mitt Romney blasting Trump. He said yesterday that Trump's return to office would feed into the national malady of denial, deceit, and distrust that the senator said President Biden has not been able to break through yet. So obviously he's taking a little bit of a shot there at Biden, saying he's been unable to break through this malaise, this deceit, this distrust. But that Trump returning to office really would make things a whole lot worse. Story written by Rachel Scully for thehill.com. Senator Mitt Romney said basically that in an opinion piece published in the Atlantic magazine that many Americans on both sides of the aisle are continuing to dismiss various threats against the country. I'm not dismissing any threats. I don't know why they would say that. People dismissing threats. I'm paying attention to them, talking about them on pretty much almost a daily basis. But these threats, which include inflation, global climate change, illegal immigration, and water insecurity out west. Now, he cited the reactions of MAGA loyalists to the recent congressional hearings on the failed insurrection, January 6, 2021, as just yet another example of America's denial. Mr. Romney wrote, "If we continue to ignore the real threats we face, America will inevitably suffer serious consequences." Mr. Romney called Mr. Biden a genuinely good man, although he said the president has not been able to resolve the nation's dismissal of serious issues. And then he warned that the possible return of Trump could inflate that denial beyond repair. He said, "President Joe Biden is a genuinely good man, but he has yet been unable to break through our national malady of denial, deceit, and distrust. A return of Trump would feed the sickness, probably rendering it incurable." Of course, the Ohio Republican has frequently criticized Trump since the 2016 presidential race, during which he called the real estate and reality TV star mogul, he called him a fraud. He hoped to convict the former president following both of his impeachments, voted to convict. In the article for The Atlantic, Mitt Romney also called out Congress, saying it has been disappointing in its failure to take action. "Our elected officials put a finger in the wind more frequently than they show backbone against it," he said, saying too often Washington demonstrates the maxim that for evil to thrive only requires good men to do nothing. And that is a true maxim. Now, he also noted that the two parties have blamed each other, which he said has only added to the dismissal of problems. What accounts for the blithe dismissal of potentially cataclysmic threats, he asked. The left thinks the right is at fault for ignoring climate change and the attacks on our political system. The right thinks the left is the problem for ignoring illegal immigration and the national debt. Mitt said he has a hope for the future, saying he wants a president who can rise above the din to unite us behind the truth, and adding that until such a leader holds the country's high office, leadership must come from everyday Americans. Mitt kind of sounds like he's making a run in 2024, doesn't he? Now, the only other candidate that we know of here at ApartmentKaraoke.com who is doing that is, of course, Howard Stern. Mr. Romney said, "While we wait, leadership must come from fathers and mothers, teachers and nurses, priests and rabbis, businessmen and businesswomen, journalists and pundits. That will require us all to rise above ourselves, above our grievances and resentments, and grasp the mantle of leadership that our country so badly needs. All right, once again, a great story there, brief and to the point, by Rachel Scully for TheHill.com. I'll come back. I think I got one more in me. You're listening to The Morning Show. Adam Gabbert, a writer for TheGuardian.com, he says that Fox and Friends are finally confronting this whole situation, regarding those false election claims made by Trump and his most avid supporters, because, well, it's going to possibly be costing them a lot of money over there at Fox News. So I'm going to read this one. Right-wing networks, Fox News, One American Network, Newsmax, they could be found liable in cases brought by voting machine company Dominion. That's right. They could be found liable for defamation for using their network and their platform to speak to the American people and tell them things that are not true, that are unso. In the months following the 2020 U.S. presidential election, right-wing TV news in America was a wild west and a apparently lawless free-for-all where conspiracy theories about voting machines, ballot-stuffed suitcases, and dead Venezuelan leaders were repeated to viewers around the clock. You've heard them all. There was some guy in Italy that got into the Dominion machines. Another person maybe in China. Maybe they were at fault, Couldn't have possibly just been Trump losing an election. There has to be a grand conspiracy with many, many facets to it, none of them with any proof. Now, there seemed to be little consequence for peddling the most outrageous ideas on prime time. Actually, it was financially good for them, to get ratings up and lift these conspiracy tales to the level of something that you report on TV news. But now, unfortunately for Fox News, One American News Network, and Newsmax, it turns out that this brave new world wasn't free from legal jurisdiction, with the three networks now facing multi-billion-dollar lawsuits as a result of their baseless accusations. Last month, Dominion Voting Systems, which provided voting machines to 28 states, was given the go-ahead to sue Fox Corporation, the parent company of Fox News, in a case that could draw Rupert Murdoch and his son, Lachlan, into the spotlight. In the $1.6 billion lawsuit, Dominion accuses Fox News Corporation and the Murdochs specifically of allowing Fox News to amplify false claims that the voting company had rigged the election for Mr. Biden. Fox Corporation had attempted to have the suit dismissed, but a Delaware judge said that Dominion had shown adequate evidence for the suit to proceed. Dominion is already suing Fox News as well as One American Network and Newsmax. You probably know about the lawsuits involving the MyPillow guy, Mike Lindell, and his company, the MyPillow Company, Mr. Lindell, having dragged his company into this battle, Now, again, as far as I've ever seen, just my own reporting, my own opinion, they haven't proved a thing. In 60-plus lawsuits in battleground states all across this fine land, they've tried to prove it. Trump and his right-wing attorney allies, they failed. In many cases, the judges in those cases, Trump actually appointed jurists who have held these people accountable financially for wasting the court's time. No, I've had stories about that too. And yeah, they're going to have to pay up now if they've wasted the court's time. So, the judge in the case, in this case, Judge Eric Davis, said, these allegations by Dominion support a reasonable inference that Rupert and Lachlan Murdoch either knew Dominion had not manipulated the election, or at least recklessly disregarded the truth when they allegedly caused Fox News to propagate its claims about Dominion. Now, to me, the only thing I've said about the Dominion is that the name, not the best name. This occurred decades ago. We've been using electronic voting machines in our country for probably like 100 years. There's never been a problem until Trump lost an election. Surprisingly enough, the Dominion machines, so far as I noted, and the Smartmatic machines did what they were designed to do. Count votes and tally them for the appropriate candidate. No one's proved a thing about it. The only thing they like to do is to make it kind of sound scary, because the Dominion's kind of like a scary kind of name, let's admit it. Of course, I think of Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, and the Dominion and the Founders, but it goes something like this for someone like Mike Lindell. It's the machines. It's the Dominion machines. They're evil. There's bad people over there. The machines are wicked. It's just basically a game, and Mike Lindell, his prognostications, his predictions that Trump would be returned to the Oval Office last August of 21, failed. They failed when he said it might take until the fall or the end of the year. And that's never, ever going to happen. This lawsuit that he promised the American people, he'd take it there to the Supreme Court. They'd vote 9-0. Trump would be reinstalled and Biden would be kicked out of the White House. A fairy tale told by Mike Lindell and some others out there. Now it says here, Dominion has a very strong case against Fox News and against One American Network, as well as Newsmax, for that matter, said Sierra Torres Spilici. I apologize to the professor if I mispronounce her name, which is likely, a professor who teaches constitutional law at Stetson University and a fellow at the Brennan Center for Justice, a nonpartisan law and policy institute. The reason Dominion is suing is because Fox and other right-wing news outlets repeated vicious lies that Dominion's voting machine stole the 2020 election from Trump. But all of these conspiracy theories about Dominion's machines were just pure bunk. And Fox, as a news organization, should have known that and not given this aspect of the big lie a megaphone. What's particularly bad for Fox is that Dominion asked them to stop and correct the record in real time, and Fox persisted in spreading misrepresentations about the voting machine company around the world. Indeed, in his ruling, Davis noted that other newspapers under Rupert Murdoch's control, including the Wall Street Journal and the New York Post, condemned President Trump's claims and urged him to concede defeat, which, of course, he never, ever did. Like most candidates do that get beaten in this country, they call the other person, they wish them well moving forward. That's not the kind of guy that Trump says. Never going to happen from Donald Trump to call Joe Biden. In a statement, a Fox News spokesperson said, limiting the ability of the press to report freely on the American election process stands in stark contrast to the liberties on which this nation was founded, and we are confident we will prevail in this case, as the First Amendment is the foundation of our democracy, and freedom of the press must be protected. Now, again, you have freedom of the press in this country, but you don't have the freedom to come out and say untruths, possibly defame a corporation without there being consequences. You can't just stand upon the First Amendment and say, we can do whatever we want over at Fox News, because that's not the way it works. A potential precedent in the Dominion versus Fox case could be found in a recent case involving Sarah Palin, who sued the New York Times. Ms. Palin claimed the newspaper maliciously damaged her reputation by erroneously linking her campaign rhetoric to a mass shooting. In February, a jury sided with the New York Times, finding that a Times employee had not acted with actual malice against a public figure or with reckless disregard for the truth, the criteria necessary to prove defamation. But the Times' victory shouldn't give Fox too much hope. In the Palin case, the New York Times quickly corrected the mistake about Sarah Palin that had been added while an article was edited. The attorney, as I mentioned before, Torres Spilici. By contrast, Fox News kept up the bad behavior and repeatedly told myths over and over again about Dominion's voting machines. This is likely why judges in several of these Dominion defamation cases have not dismissed them. Dominion isn't the only company seeking damages from Fox and its contemporaries. Smartmatic, perhaps more a normal kind of election machine name, in my view, Smartmatic. You know how they barely mention Smartmatic? It's just so much fun to talk about the Dominion. But then they mention offhandedly Smartmatic, an election software company which provided the voting software to precisely, what says here, precisely one county in the 2020 election, but found itself subjected to claims that it was founded for the specific purpose of fixing elections by, believe it or not, associates of Hugo Chavez, the former president of Venezuela, who died in 2013. That's right. Anyway, there's some legal stuff going on there. They're suing Fox Corp, Fox News and Associates, for $2.7 billion. Still, Fox News is the most watched and arguably most influential cable news channel in the U.S., and it says here is probably too big to fail. Don't you just hate that? Isn't that the argument they used, back in the 2008 financial crisis? Oh, this company's too big to fail. The United States taxpayers will have to pick up the bill because they're just way, way too big to fail. So someone's got to bail them out. Crazy stuff. Anyway, but this isn't the case in terms of this whole thing with the Dominion and Smartmatic and the election machines. This isn't the case for some of these smaller right-wing outlets like OAN and Newsmax, which are also both being sued by Dominion and Smartmatic. In June, a Delaware judge refused Newsmax's motion to have the Dominion case dismissed, but did not weigh in on whether Newsmax was innocent or guilty. In this case, Angelo Carusone, President and Chief Executive of Media Matters for America, which monitors the right-wing media, says, I think the OAN is going to be wiped out from the litigation costs. In other words, their network is going to be wiped out. Forget about any judgment. Whether they win or lose, it's going to cost them so much money in attorneys, they'll be gone. Carusone pointed out that OAN is already struggling to survive after it was dropped by the DirecTV cable company, which was reportedly responsible for 90% of their revenue. Went on to say, we've started seeing already them scaling back programming. They've been laying off staff. They've been cutting back the number of programs. So it's pretty clear that they don't have sufficient resources to weather a protracted litigation like this. Newsmax, which is still carried by DirecTV, is relatively cash flush in comparison to OAN, enough to possibly survive a trial, if not to pay the billions of dollars that they would owe Dominion and Smartmatic should they lose. In a statement, Newsmax said it had reported on allegations made by President Trump and his surrogates, and at no time did we report these allegations were true. We also reported on critics of the Trump claims. It added, the Dominion suit is an assault on the free press, and it endangers all press outlets if it were to prevail. Naturally, they're going to say that. Now, OAN did not respond to a request for comment. As for Fox, the most significant thing could be if the Murdochs are subjected to discovery, where they and Fox could be forced to hand over documents, potentially including communications data, as part of the legal process. Carusone said text messages obtained by the January 6th Select Committee have already revealed that there was communication between Fox News hosts and White House officials regarding the failed insurrection, and it seems unlikely that is the only thing that was discussed. I think once you start to pull the discovery material, what you're going to find is there was a lot of communication between the Trump people, both internally and externally, about pushing very specific lies and narrative, Carusone said. While Fox is more financially comfortable than OAN and Newsmax, it is not invulnerable. Fox News is due to renegotiate its contracts with cable providers at the end of this year, and Carusone said cable companies could use the lawsuit to drive down prices. The Dominion and Smartmatic cases are likely to drag on for some time, and it remains to be seen how Fox News, OAN, and Newsmax will react. As for the news channel's conspiratorial claims of election fraud, at least that is one thing that has already been settled. The courts, the Department of Justice, election officials have investigated and dismissed the accusations, as has the United States Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity, and Infrastructure Security Agency. The November 3rd election was the most secure in American history, the agency said in a statement in 2020. While we know there are many unfounded claims and opportunities for misinformation about the process of our elections, we can assure you we have the utmost confidence in the security and integrity of our elections, and you should too. Bill Barr, Trump's Attorney General, put it in rather less sophisticated terms. The claims of election interference, Bill Barr told the January 6th Select Committee, were bullshit. And that'll do it for that story by The Guardian. Fantastic story. I'll be back. You're listening to The Morning Show. Oh, I just found one story, and I almost left it behind. I guess I got it sometime over this weekend. Well, it says here I got it Sunday, July the 3rd. So I got it a couple of days ago. Yeah. World War II Medal of Honor recipient to Lyon State at the United States Capitol. This is one Herschel W. Woody Williams, the last remaining Medal of Honor recipient from World War II. And the story is by the Associated Press. Dateline, Washington. Herschel W. Woody Williams, the last remaining Medal of Honor recipient from World War II, will lie in honor at the United States Capitol House. Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said on Sunday. A date and other details will be announced later. Woody Williams embodied the best of America, living a life of duty, honor, and courage, Pelosi said. Senator Schumer adding, Woody Williams was an American hero who embodied the best of our country and the greatest generation. Mr. Williams, who died on Wednesday at 98 years old, was a legend in his native West Virginia for his heroics under fire over several crucial hours at the Battle for Iwo Jima. As a young Marine Corporal, Williams went ahead of his unit in February of 1945 and eliminated a series of Japanese machine gun positions. Facing small arms fire, Williams fought for 4 hours, repeatedly returning to prepare demolition charges and obtain flamethrowers. Later that year, the 22-year-old Williams received the Medal of Honor from President Harry Truman. The Medal of Honor is the nation's highest award for military valor. In remarks at a memorial Sunday in Charleston, West Virginia, United States Senator Joe Manchin said Mr. Williams never quit giving back. That included raising money for Gold Star families, including immediate family members of fallen service members, with an annual motorcycle ride. It raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, Senator Manchin said. He joked that it's not going to be stopping because Woody would come after me in a heartbeat. Senator Manchin, a West Virginia Democrat, said he will miss Williams' phone calls, noting how Williams would always give him directions and to-do lists. I'll miss him telling me how I'm supposed to vote, and when I didn't, how I made a mistake, Manchin said. General David H. Berger, Commandant of the United States Marine Corps, said at the memorial that Williams always took exception to the notion that he accomplished that feat alone. He always acknowledged the other men on his team, some of whom never returned home. Woody may be the most genuine person I ever met, Berger said, noting his unique combination of humility and humor. He could make you laugh. He could make you care. That was his gift. Mr. Williams remained in the Marines after the war, serving a total of 20 years before working for the VA for 33 years as a Veterans Service representative. In 2018, the Huntington VA Medical Center was renamed in his honor, and the Navy commissioned a mobile base sea vessel in his name in 2020. He left an indelible mark on our Marine Corps, Berger said. As long as there are Marines, his legacy will live on. Senator Manchin announced during his remarks that Williams would lie in state at the Rotunda, but Speaker Pelosi and Senator Schumer said he would lie in honor. The distinction, according to the architect of the Capitol, which oversees the building, is that government officials and military officers lie in state, while private citizens lie in honor. Very interesting. I did not know that. Okay, I'm going to sing this one with John Denver in honor of Mr. Williams.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Obviously, the man's from West Virginia, and so that's the one I'm going to do as soon as I can get it loud enough to actually do it, on my phone here. So this one's posted out there in YouTube by, John Denver. So here we go.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is older than the trees. free. Gather round her, miner's lady, stranger to blue water. Dark and dusty, painted on the sky, misty taste of moonshine, teardrop in my eye. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home. Country roads, I hear her voice in the morning hour. She calls me. The radio reminds me of my home far away. Driving down the road, I get a feeling that I should have been home yesterday. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home. Country roads, take me home. Country roads, take me home. Country roads.
All right, the legendary late great John Denver would Take Me Home, Country Roads, and that's in honor of Mr. Woody Williams, who has gone home to his Lord, and now I'm going home to my apartment. Oftentimes I use a song called Take Me Home Tonight with Eddie Money or Phil Collins, with his great song Take Me Home from the album No Jacket Required. Tonight, however, heading back home with I was going to go for this one, so I may as well go for this one. This one is Jim Croce with I Got a Name in Mobile Mode.
Like the pine trees lining the winding road, I've got a name, I've got a name. Like the singing bird and the croaking toad, I've got a name, I've got a name. And I carry it with me like my daddy did, but I'm living the dream that he kept here. Moving me down the highway, rolling me down the highway, moving ahead so life won't pass me by. Like a north wind whistling down pass me by.
All right, Jim Croce, I got a name, and I'm back home now. Thank you very much for listening to the morning show. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll come back again and visit us tomorrow. Thank you very much. Have a great day.